A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Thus says the Lord, who opens a way in the sea and a path in the mighty waters, who leads out chariots and horsemen, a powerful army, till they lie prostrate together, never to rise, snuffed out and quenched like a wick. Remember not the events of the past. The things of long ago consider not. See, I am doing something new. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? In the desert I make a way, in the wasteland, rivers. Wild beasts honor me, jackals and ostriches, for I put water in the desert and rivers in the wasteland for my chosen people to drink, the people whom I formed for myself, that they might announce my praise. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I am doing something new, says the Lord. Before, he delivered Israel from enslavement. He opened a dry way through the sea for them to pass through, to arrive at liberation. And once they were free, the path was closed. But just as that path through the sea was a temporary path, so their liberation was temporary. Later, of course, they would go into exile in Babylon, a new sort of enslavement. But for us, God is doing something new. We too are being liberated. We who live in a desert that we have created, a desert of sin, enslavement, we are being liberated in a permanent freedom, as the water that pours forth from the side of Christ brings us forgiveness and life. But there's a caveat to this freedom. The Lord tells us to remember not the events of the past. The things of the past are what have made us who we are. The things of the world have given us our identity. And as things of the world, they have a temporary nature. They came into being in the past, and they will perish in the future. And so if we cling too tightly to those things of the past, those things of the world, and define ourselves too firmly according to those worldly things, we too will perish with them. So this command to remember not the events of the past is also a call for a radical detachment. Detachment from our worldly desires, from our desires for power, our desire for influence, our desire to be lauded, or our desire to be remembered. The call to come to this water of liberation, this water of freedom, of life, necessitates this detachment from the world. I was inspired this week by the election of our new Pope. At his Ubi et Orbi speech and blessing, Pope Francis said that the cardinals had come together to choose a new bishop of Rome, and they had gone to the ends of the earth to find one. Argentina is pretty far from Rome. And I realized, in thinking about that, there was a lot that our Pope Francis is giving up to serve the Lord and to serve the church. He spent most of his life in Argentina, was bishop there for the last 20 years. So all of his family, his friends, his possessions are all in Argentina. He knows the culture, the festivals, the food, the language. It's all from Argentina. His whole life and his whole identity has been Argentina. And now, all of a sudden, at the drop of the hat, it's all gone. He has to give it all up. He can't go back to say goodbye to his friends and his family. He can't go back to reclaim his possessions. He has a new house, a new wardrobe, a new name. The man he was before is dead and will never come back. We can all empathize with our Holy Father in some way. Those of us who entered the Dominicans had to give up part of who we were. In some ways, the man we were before has died. Those of us who took religious names realize that part of the signification of that religious name is that the man we were before has died. But the call to forget the things of the past is an even stronger call than that, a complete death to ourselves. Christ is our true example. He abandoned himself entirely to the will of God. And in abandoning himself to the cross, he abandoned himself into abandonment. In abandoning himself to the cross, he was abandoned by his friends, his disciples. In abandoning himself to the cross, he was abandoned and forsaken by God. He cast himself, Jesus, who is the garden, the fount of life, he cast himself into the abyss of our desert of sin and death, in order that we, who live and are enslaved in that desert, may come to the spring that sprouts from his side, that we may find liberation and freedom if we're willing to give up the desert that constrains us. We have before us two paths. One path that leads to the desert of sin, enslavement, and slavery, and death. The other path that leads to the stream of love, forgiveness, and life. The choice is yours. Choose life.